that was a comfortable win in the end last night. It was looking a bit ropey at half-time though, weren't it? A goal down, some players really not playing well. But we saw a ruthless manager at half-time. 3 substitutions who were to go on and inspire us in the second half. A 3-1 win in the end. I think it was comfortable and I think it was deserved for West Ham too. We've got the first game out of the way. We've got the 3 points. That's the most important thing. I think we played all right over the evening. There was periods where we weren't playing well enough. There were certain players that didn't play well enough. But I thought there were some good player performances in there. And overall, we've navigated the first game well. And that's what matters at the end of the day. It's a cup competition. It's all about the results. In this video, we're going to take a very, very brief look at last night. We're going to discuss Flynn Downes in a bit more detail and the situation around him later on in the video. But at the start, it's all about why I want to win this competition or why I think it's important that we do win it. Not take it seriously, win it. I'll get onto that in a second. But back to last night. It wasn't champagne football. It wasn't vintage West Ham. It wasn't a 10 out of 10 performance. Nobody's coming away from that thinking, hell, bring on Newcastle on Sunday. We're going to smash them. Now, I know the game isn't going ahead. But last night when people left the ground, it was still possible. Nobody thought we're going to smash the Premier League to pieces off the back of last night's performance. But I don't really mind because I thought we played well and I think well enough to win the game 3-1. And in years gone by, when you look at teams like Man United, now obviously I'm talking about the past year, this is how far back I'm going, but teams like Man United would win games without playing that well. In the phrase we get trotted out, that's a sign of a good team. That's a sign of a good team. One that can play all right and win a game, you're good. Well, I think you've got to be fair and apply that to West Ham when it comes to the group stages of the European competition and last year too, because I felt like in the Europa League last year, like I kept saying, professional performance, you know, nothing glamorous but comfortable. From the start to the finish in that group stage, I thought we were very comfortable last year and it's got off to that start this year. And I know people say, but we're in a lesser European competition this time round. But is there much between our opponents? I don't know. I don't know enough. Obviously, last year I saw Genk, Zagreb and Vienna. This year I've only seen one team, FCSB. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think there was much between them last night compared to who we played in the group stages last year. We've got Silkeborg and Anderlecht coming up as well. Between the 6 of them, with my lack of knowledge in that, I don't really feel like there's too much between them actually at this stage of the competition. I think in the knockout, that's when you're probably going to realise you're in a little bit of a lesser competition. When you look at the other teams in the other groups as well, there's 1 or 2 teams I've never heard of in this competition. I'm thinking, who's that? That's when I feel like we're in a lesser competition. But looking at our group, I don't really feel it just now. But anyway, like I said, we did the job last night and we did it comfortably, and it was a good performance. Well, I say good, it was a decent performance from us from start to finish. And like I said, a few ropey bits in there, some players not playing well enough, but we saw David Moyes be ruthless at the break. 3 substitutions, and that's a positive we have to take from the game, because in the past I've been very critical about him sort of dwindling, if you like, being a bit slow with his subs. None of that last night. Happy days. That's what we want to see. Now, as for the competition itself, one thing I am really guilty of, and a lot of you are guilty of, which is at the start of the season when people say, what's your hopes for the season? What's your ambitions for West Ham this coming season? And one thing I will always say is take the cup seriously. But what does that really mean? You could put your first team out, your strongest team out in the first round of the FA Cup and get knocked out straight away. I mean, you haven't really done anything. You've lost 1 game of football. You haven't won a game of football. But because you put the first team out, you've taken it seriously. So it's a phrase that sort of gets you off the hook almost. It sounds good. That'll do. We move on. Well, when it comes to this competition, the Europa Conference League, I don't want to take it seriously. I want to win it. That has to be our ambition. Our ambition must be to go on and win it. Now, David Moyes has played it down a little bit in his press conference, but he does want to win it. Of course he does. He's the manager. He should want to. But we saw enough evidence last season from him, not just in the European competition, but also the League Cup and the FA Cup, that he wants to win a trophy. I never felt his team's lineup suggested we weren't taking it serious. I never felt the attitude of the players suggested we were taking it seriously. Quite the opposite. Both of those things, the lineups and attitude, I came away from every game thinking Moyes wants to win that game and this competition. And it started with it last night as well. It would have been easy for him to make no changes at the break, to give Lanzini an extra 15 minutes, see if he can get up to speed. Ben Rama an extra 10 minutes, see if he can get into the game a little bit more, see if Skamaka can get his shooting boots on. He didn't do that at the break. He said, right, you three off the pitch. Now, personally, I would have left Scamacca on. However, it doesn't matter. He was proven correct. Antonio came on, played better than Scamacca, and scored a goal. But this substitution from Moyes at half-time just reminding me last night that Moyes is serious about this competition. Moyes wants to win this tournament, and so he should. He's coming into this tournament with a very expensive assembled squad now. Not just the players that he's brought in, but the players that were already at the club that he has kept on and is utilising. You know, Fernand's 25 million or something like that. That's a player that he's using, but he didn't bring to the club. So very, very expensive. And Declan Rice was free. So we spent a lot of money putting this squad together. We need to yield results, and that's part of the reason I want to win it. There's that saying, there's a few sayings in life, isn't there? Strike while the iron is hot, pun not intended there. When the sun shines, make hay. And there's a little bit of that for me, West Ham, because just bear with me for 1 second while I glance back to last season. There is still a bit of regret from me that we didn't make more of it. In the January transfer window, before someone says get over it, like I said, I'm mainly over it. There's a little bit of me not quite over it yet. But come the January transfer window, there is a little bit of me that still has that element of what if. What if we invested? What if we brought in that position or that player? Could we have gone on and done a little bit more? Could we have got the Europa League instead of the Conference League? Could we have beaten Frankfurt in the semi-finals? And that last season was the closest we've come to winning something since 2006, where we still didn't win something, but we got closer to winning something. But we still won nothing. You know, it's a great team, it's a great season, but that's it. That's as far as it goes. I don't want that. I want a memorable season. I want a trophy. Just to quickly interrupt you, this video is sponsored by Spitch. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Hang on a minute, Joe. We know about this. It's the free fantasy football app to download, which is free to join. There's free to play games where you can win cash prizes. But the Premier League has been postponed. You're correct about all that. However, what you perhaps don't know is there's other competitions than just the Premier League on Spitch. Let me show you. When you load up your app, once you've downloaded and signed up and all that, you'll meet this page with the Premier League lobby on it. If you click Premier League at the very top, click all leagues on the right hand side, and you can scroll down. There's other competitions, including the Bundesliga. Now, what you might not know is this is a German app. A German app means it's popular over there. Popular over there means more people sign up. More people sign up means more people entering. What does more people entering mean? You've got it. Bigger prize pot. Top left of the Bundesliga, click Classic, and then you can click Join Free. You can see there £1,150 in the prize pot so far, and it's completely free to play, and you only need a team for this weekend only in the Bundesliga. Once you click free, pop your team in, you hit create and you hit join free at the bottom. I've not done my team yet, but I'll tell you what, I'll be getting involved. And just to have a little look, top right, I'm going to click prize pool just to show you. And you can see there the top prize for the Bundesliga fantasy football this weekend on Spitch. Top prize, £425. Runner up gets £212. It's completely free to play this game. Now, because there's cash prizes, there's also pay to play games as well. It is gambling. It's 18 plus, only available in certain countries. Please gamble responsibly. However, if you fancy getting involved with a free Bundesliga fantasy league game this weekend, potentially winning money, Spitch is the place to do it. Link is in the description below. Use that one so they know you come from Hamish Chat. I want a trophy, and I want this trophy. Now, I'm not going to lie. Should we win the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, I will celebrate it like my life depends on it, and I shan't complain. But if I've got to choose one of the three, right, if I'm being picky, it's this one. I think the rewards are massive. Financially, 50 million, yes, it would help, but it costs the club a lot of money to be in this competition as well, with the accommodation cost, the travelling, so on and so forth. It costs a lot of money to be in this competition, so there's profitable should they go on and win it, but it's not as big financially rewarding as some people think. 50 million, that's if you win all your group stage games as well as go on and win the competition. But it's not just about that. It's the fact that for the fan base, you've won a trophy. That is huge for us. But for the club going forward, you're in winning this tournament. You're in the Europa League next season, regardless of your league position. It doesn't matter how you get on in your league. And I think that was part of the problem last season. I think Moyes was between the rock and a hard place where, as we got into the knockout stages of the Europa League, before and after Sevilla, he didn't really rotate the team that much with the league because he was still had a chance of finishing in the top 6. And then obviously when it came to the Lyon and Frankfurt games, he was a little bit more open to rotating, especially the Frankfurt ones, and that cost us points in the Premier League. Now you could argue that we'd have still lost points anyway, but remember Stamford Bridge, we lost narrowly with a heavily rotated team. The squad wasn't good enough in depth. We had the numbers, but we didn't have the players, we didn't have the quality or the ability in depth to sufficiently rotate the squad. We've got that now. There's no excuses now. You look at that squad that we got. The bench last night was brilliant. That's one of the best benches I've seen ever while I've been alive supporting West Ham. The bench had Bowen on it, Fornals, Antonio, Paqueta. The starting 11 wasn't too shabby either. Now I know it wasn't our starting 11 on the pitch, but hear me out. That is an 11 that should be able, in theory, to navigate this group stage relatively comfortable and get us into the knockouts. And if we win the group, we'll go straight into the last 16. We don't even have to worry about it until next year. Obviously, the World Cup takes up 2 months of that, but forget that for a second. We don't have to worry about it until next year, and then hopefully then we've got enough points on the board where we can rotate heavily, and if we do, we still have a good team for the Premier League at the weekend. This competition is a fantastic opportunity for West Ham, not just to make history, but to really kick on as a club. We are in a really good place right now as a club. Are the results happening? No, they're not. Is the player performances, is everybody in form? No. Is Moyes getting the best out of this team? Are we playing good football? No. But it doesn't mean we can't go on and win this competition. I see more reasons to argue for winning it than against. And I'm still adamant that last season, while the football was pretty poor in the second half of the season, and like I said, my belief is, it's not that Moyes has changed and we've got worse, it's that teams have figured us out a little bit, and that's why we're struggling. Personally, that's what I feel. But they haven't done it in European football yet. And I think that's part of the reason we succeeded against Sevilla. We succeeded against Lyon, because the way that we played last year was fine against them. We were able to play against those teams and be effective, just like we were in the Premier League for the season prior when we finished 6th. And the first half of last season, we were able to play our counter-attacking football. Then when teams started sitting back a little bit in the Premier League, we struggled. The results show that. You go from the game against Liverpool, the back end of last calendar year forward, we didn't win too many games. Teams figured us out a bit, but we were still winning in European football, because I think Moyes' tactics that we're currently playing and we were playing, I think it suits European football. European football, just like the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, is all about results. And I think that's actually where Moyes will do well, in those one-off games, if you like, or two. The knockout games is two. Knockout ties is 2 games, but you get what I mean. Those one-offs, I think Moyes will be fine. And I feel confident that we can go on and win this competition. And God, do I want to win it. It's not just a trophy. Like I said, I think it would be massive for the club. But we have to take advantage of this squad. How long will the players that we've brought in, bearing in mind it feels like a coup that we've got Paqueta and Scamacca, and I am adamant eventually a big Italian club's going to come knocking for Scamacca. There's a lot of pride in that country when it comes to buying and selling players. They tend to trade among each other, and Italians don't always leave that league. They tend to stay in the league and play for different clubs in there. And I think the fact that they're number 9 for the national team playing in the Premier League, I almost feel that I'll almost insult them a little bit. So I could see a big Italian club trying to get Scamacca in a couple of seasons' time. So we've got, how long do you reckon we've got? A year? This season maybe? To show Rice, Scamacca and Paqueta what we can do. And I think the answer has to be trophies. And this is sort of goes hand in hand with what David Moyes was speaking about when he was on the podcast. He was saying we've got to get players that's good enough for the top 4, which is true. And I think we've got a handful of them now. But there's also a consequence. There's a domino effect. Now you've got them, you've then got to play like that. You have to keep them at the club. You've got to then up your game. So you need to up the ability of the squad. But when you do that, you've then got to up the results that you're getting and what you're doing with the squad in order to keep on building. No such thing as standing still in football. I've always said that. You're either moving forwards or you're moving backwards. And Moyes and no, it wasn't Moyes. It was one of his coaches. I think it was Nevin that said it, or it was McKinley. I think it was after. It was in the pre-season anyway. One of the coaches said it after Declan Rice has said it at a previous game, which is we're going forwards or backwards. Pick which one. And I think it's a little bit like that for me this season. Anyway, moving on to Flynn Downes. Sorry for rambling. I've just seen how long I've rambled on. Apologies for that. I've got more waffle than Belgium at the minute. Anyway, moving on to Flynn Downes. Brilliant performance from him last night. Really, really pleasing. Obviously, we knew he was going to start. Moyes practically told us on Wednesday he was going to start. And start he did. And I thought he played fantastic. Man of the match, hands down, easily. It wasn't even a contest as far as I'm concerned. In fact, the only people that gave him a run for his money for the Man of the Match award was the subs that came on. Antonio Fernals and to a lesser extent Bowen. They were the better player. The ones that came on were the ones that were just as good as Flynn Downes. Pardon me. Has Flynn Downes done enough to start in the Premier League? I don't think so. I don't think he will. This is a prediction, by the way. I don't think if we were playing Newcastle on Sunday, would Downes start? If Souček's fit, I don't think he would. I think he'd be back on the bench. And I think that's fair. You've got to take the opponent into consideration, which is okay. You can do it against FCSB with Declan Rice next to you, but can you do it up against Newcastle? Now, I know he's injured, but if Newcastle had Bruno playing on Sunday afternoon, could Flynn Downes cope against him? We've got no evidence to suggest he will. We've got the evidence from the Championship. We know he can do it against that level of player. We saw last night that he can do it against that level of player. But is that the same ability players that we would come up against in the Premier League? I don't think so. I think the Premier League's another step up. So we still don't know he can do it. So last night, like I said, does he then start in the Premier League? I'm not too sure. But what he does do, minimum, it's caused David Moyes a bit of a headache, actually, because if Souček goes back out of form, and Souček's in form at the minute, that's another thing you've got to take into consideration. The fact that he's had a few good games in a row now, Souček, so he sort of deserves to keep his shirt. But after one or two ropey performances, Downes is knocking on the door. So while I don't think he's done enough to potentially start in the Premier League, he's certainly done enough to be considered to start or to come off the bench in the Premier League games. And he's done enough to give Moyes a headache. It was really, really pleasing last night. Listen, it's in possession, he keeps it simple. It is a bit sideways and backwards. That's his job. That is, when we were doing the review last time, we were talking about Downes. Someone said, "Oh, all he did was pass it sideways," and I just thought, I bit my tongue, but I just thought, but that's his job. His job is to retain possession, to keep it ticking over. And it isn't just sideways. He does play it forward. I know what they're trying to say, though, which is he's not the most creative player on the pitch. He's never been the most creative player on the pitch. He wasn't that player for Swansea. He wasn't racking up assists or playing through balls or anything like that. That's not his job. His job is to break up play, which I thought he did fantastic last night. His job is to retain possession, which, again, he did a really good job last night. And you saw those little passing duos and triangles with Kerr, with Declan Rice. You'll see a lot more of that. And the more they play next to him, the more they'll trust him. So there's a guy right behind him, doesn't matter. Downes don't lose it. Here, you have the ball, sunshine. And they'll get it back from him. I thought it was a fantastic performance. And I was really, really pleased, because if he'd had a bad performance, it would have just knocked him down the pecking order drastically. We might have saw Connor Coventry start on Thursday night. We still don't know if that game's going ahead. West Ham are in discussions with UEFA as to what to happen with our Conference League game on Thursday. I'm just guessing here. I'm guessing that game goes ahead, but the one on the following weekend against Everton may be postponed as well. So Premier League's got a bit of a scheduling issue. The World Cup doesn't help, but at the minute we've got a game on Thursday, and I think if the Everton game is postponed prior, Downes will struggle next Thursday because Souček will be fit and Moyes will be able to play and probably want to play his first 11 to keep the match sharpness up, and it'll probably give us a bit of an advantage over our upcoming opposition who haven't got European football, because they could essentially go, Brighton and Crystal Palace are going to go approximately a month without a game of football because they've got that other game following this is postponed due to travel. It's already postponed, so they've essentially got another weekend chalked off already. So I think Brighton and Palace, I was reading it just now, that they could actually go nearly a month without a game of football. I mean, that's a good time to play Crystal Palace, isn't it? And unfortunately, we've already played Brighton, but hopefully we've got Palace coming up, because that'd be a nice one to play there. But this Conference League might end up being quite crucial for keeping our players sharp while the Premier League calendar is interrupted. But anyway, back to Downes. Yes, fantastic performance. Like I said, I think he's now sort of, I say moved ahead. He's probably always ahead of Connor Coventry in the pecking order, but I think he's just reaffirmed that. I think he's just established that. And now a little bit closer to the first team. Unfortunately for him, Souček's been putting some good performances lately. But I do wonder what Declan Rice is thinking, because when I did the player ratings with Gonzo earlier, I said to him, I said, you've got to assume Moyes speaks to Declan Rice about the upcoming game, about tactics and player selection and stuff like that, as he's the captain, even if it's just to bounce ideas off of. And at some point there will be a conversation about centre midfield. You'd imagine Declan Rice will be telling Moyes who he prefers to play next to out of Souček and Downs, and I think that could be a bit of an interesting one. Wouldn't mind being a fly on the wall for that one. Anyway, I'm going to disappear, but before I go, can I just ask if you've got any content ideas, any videos you'd like to see, please put them in the comments below, because obviously we don't have any previews or anything like that to do now, so we're short of ideas, so you might have a few generic Premier League videos coming up over the next week or so, and B, it also means that people sometimes come up with good ideas and we can pinch them. We can pinch your ideas. So get involved in the comments below with any topics or any ideas you've got for us. And I might be back tomorrow. Hopefully do something for tomorrow. Gonzo's video tomorrow will have a little bit of his clip from Harry Redknapp. He's away to interview Redknapp approximately in 2 hours time at the time of recording. Right now I'm definitely waffling. I'm gone. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. Catch you in a bit.